Hello, welcome to our, now I can't remember what it's called, Year of Learning webinar for this spring. We're excited to have you here, and we're really excited to have our panel today. So today we're talking about being involved in ULA and how that can improve your career, how it brings opportunities for professional development and networking and all of the great things that it can do for you. Hopefully, you enjoy this. I know you will. We are recording it. And we are going to turn time over to Patrick Herschel, who is our amazing ULA president at the moment. And he has a great panel that will introduce themselves. So without any further words from me, welcome, Patrick.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for coming today, everyone. So as Carla mentioned, I'm Patrick Herschel. I'm the ULA president for less than a month is all I got left on this. I got to hand it over at the conference. Yeah. My day job is at the Salt Lake City Public Library. I'm the assistant manager out at the Glendale branch library out on Salt Lake's west side. We've got a great panel put together for all of you. I kind of thought a little bit about some of the people that I've seen that have been involved with ULA over the years and have done a lot of great stuff. And then also some people that are a little bit newer to ULA, but I feel like they found a way to really get involved quickly. So I thought it would be great to talk to them about some of the benefits they've seen, how they got into ULA, and yeah, let's leave it at that, and we'll get everyone to start introducing themselves. So, Daniel, would you like to be our first introduction?
My space bar would work. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a good lunch. I'm Daniel Mockley, and I'm Duchesne County Library Director, and I oversee two branches out here in rural eastern Utah. I was ULA president in 2020, 2021 with our virtual conference in the pandemic, and I've been bylaws committee chair since then, and past president committee chair too, and they aren't super burdensome, which has been nice. I've also been asked to serve on the Utah State Library Board, so I have a position there where I help represent the rural libraries in that regard. I was part of the MPLA Leadership Institute cohort last year, and that was a really great experience as well. Been on various committees for the state library, representing there. And yeah, I think that's most of it. We just finished this building that I'm sitting in here last year, remodeled the Roosevelt branch, and that's 16,000 square feet. And Duchesne branch is going to close next Monday, and we're shut down for 7 months with a remodel. So been really tied up with that, but that's mostly where I come from. I was a school librarian 3 years in the Ogden School District before we all got laid off, and then I finished my MLS and got out here, and I've been here for nine years since.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Emily, would you introduce yourself next?
Yeah, hi everybody, and thanks for being here today. My name is Emily Bolo. I work at the Salt Lake County Public Library System. I'm their education program manager, which means that I am lucky enough to get to work with our staff on their training and their professional development. So that's my current position. Previously, I worked in academic libraries, so I spent some time in acquisitions at the the Marriott Library, and then I also worked at UVU at their library for quite a few years as a librarian, and I was really excited to see Karen's smiling face on the screen. So that's a great part of any ULA event, is getting to see people at other libraries throughout the state. So my involvement with ULA, looking back, I realized it's been 10 years. So I've been doing things related to ULA for 10 years now. I first, right after I got my first librarian job at UVU, I was asked to help with the conference. So I helped as the conference vice chair and then the chair. And then since then, I've also helped with awards, and I've been a member at large for the Library Instruction Roundtable. So that was closely related to my work at UVU, was with that library instruction. And then the last 3 years, I've been a member at large, and that has also allowed me to help with the conference planning committee. So I am coming up on the end of my term with that after the conference. And after that, I'll be helping out with Diversity Services Roundtable. So that is my background and experience with ULA.
Great. Thanks, Emily. Okay, Hiroko, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Hiroko Hashitani. I am at the ULA. I am a board member at large, serving until next May. I'm mostly active in conference planning committee. My day job is I'm a librarian at the University of Utah's Faust Law Library since last July. Before that, I was a resource sharing expert at the University of Utah's Marriott Library, and then near Emily's old office on the same floor. And then I'm glad to be here.
Great, thank you, Hiroko. Okay, Maggie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie Marchant. I work at the BYU Library. I'm one of the subject librarians. I work with the business school and the economics department and with data. So I really like that kind of stuff. That's maybe a little bit more technical. I feel like I'm the newer one that Patrick was talking about. So I first got involved in ULA. I guess it was 3 years now. I was on the conference planning committee when we was like the first conference that was back in person. And since then I've been involved with the mentoring and networking roundtable, as well as the business roundtable, BERT. And those have been great experiences, and I think we'll talk more about that later. Thanks.
Great. Thanks. So a little bit about how this is going to go. I've got some questions prepared that I'm going to pose to our panelists. I know for each of the questions, at least a couple of them have prepared some remarks about it, but any of our panelists, you know, if you feel inspired in the moment, go ahead and chime in. I think we'll have some time for questions at the end, but as we go through, if people have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat and we'll try and get to the questions as they come up. So without further ado, our first question: how has your involvement with ULA impacted your professional growth and development? Who'd like to go first on that one? Emily.
Yeah, I can go. So reflecting back on this question, I realized I think my ULA involvement has had a huge impact on my professional growth, because my current job is with training and professional development, and that's such a huge part of ULA. The first thing that I did with ULA was helping with the conference. So I was the vice chair and then the chair the following year. And that role, it's a big role. It's an interesting one. You're working the whole year coming up to it. You're working really closely with the event planner, with the current president. But it's a lot of project management, a lot of keeping tabs on what lots of different people are doing with their part of the event. And that's a lot of what my job now is. So it gave me a lot of project management experience, a lot of coordination, thinking about what topics are going to be beneficial at a conference, doing some polling from staff after or of attendees after the event to kind of see how it went and what could go better next time, what topics they'd like to see. And a lot of that is what I do at my day job now. So I think that that's really kind of being involved with various conferences has really kind of helped me develop that interest in working with people on their professional development. And a lot of my work now is kind of helping staff sign up for ULA conference, letting them know about events that are going on, and kind of seeing, helping make those connections between our staff and what's available through ULA. And it's also given me a network of friends and library contacts, which we'll talk about more with a future question. But that's definitely been a big part of how ULA has impacted my professional growth, is just getting to know people through the association and with the work that we're doing through the conference. If I have a question that I haven't come across in my own work, there's probably somebody out there in the state that I can reach out to see how they've handled it. So, okay, and that's it for me.
That's great, Emily. That's so cool to see how you can see that direct link between the work that you've done for ULA and how that's played into the job that you currently have. Hiroko, you want to share some thoughts?
Sure. First thing came to mind was networking, and then it has basically taken me out of the bubble of the type of libraries I worked for. And then it gave me different perspectives and a better understanding of libraries as a whole, and which led me to educate myself and then care more about intellectual freedom. Then I'm kind of current job, I'm kind of isolated situation. I'm in my office all day. So it's great to meet up or participate in ULA-led events. And then I also rediscovered that I love doing tabling. Yeah. And then I also, I looked for a librarian job for a few years until last summer. And then I believe mentioning my ULA role on my CV had a positive impact. Because it shows that you really care about libraries and then our profession. And then I got little comments back during interviews about it. So.
And I can vouch for Hiroko. She's great at tabling. She was with us for Library Day on the Hill, and yeah, I always want Hiroko there tabling with me. Okay, well, Maggie, Daniel, for anyone, if you want to like chime in, like you can just like raise your hand. I'm not gonna pause otherwise though. So we'll just move on to the next set of questions, which you're about to answer anyway. What impact do you hope your involvement with ULA will have on the future of libraries in Utah?
I can answer that first, then we'll let Daniel answer. When I thought about this question, I was like, oh yeah, and then I thought about it again, and I was like, wait, like my individual work is going to have an impact on libraries in Utah. So I think that the whole point is that none of us can do very much just by ourselves, but all together we can make a really big impact. And so I think what I would hope, I guess, being involved in ULA would bring to libraries and librarians in Utah is like a sense of community, and that like we have a place where we belong, and that we're all like doing parts of the same work, even though we have different libraries and there's so many different types of roles in libraries, and just in like, even if you just have like one academic library, one public library, there's so many different roles, and then you have so many different types of libraries. But we're all trying to support our patrons and to provide opportunities for learning and for finding information and using information. And so we are all doing the same work, and we can help each other. Or even just, I feel like knowing that there are other people that are in the same boat helps a lot. So the sense of belonging and community, I think, is really what I would hope to have happen even more, I guess, in the future of libraries in Utah.
I think that was really beautifully put, Maggie. I like kind of this thought of, you're making just a little difference for a big group of people. That's a way that I've often considered my job. Like both, I used to have a job like Emily where I was a training coordinator. And so I'd look at that for like my library system, like, if I can make people just 1% better at their job, like that's a huge impact over time, especially when you think about, then all those librarians go on to help people in their communities, and like, if they make all those people's lives like 1% better. So it's interesting how like as one person you can have a big impact when you get involved in a bigger organization like this. Daniel, you want to go next here?
Yeah, so I guess as far as impact, I know I joined ULA because I just saw my microcosm of my libraries in Eastern Utah, and that there was a high potential of tunnel vision. So ULA to me was the next logical macrocosm to go to after that. And a lot of what's been said, I agree with. The network outside of my own libraries, I felt I had a lot to learn from other colleagues. I was very nervous being a new library director coming from school librarianship, even with an MLS degree, and it was a big jump for me, and I was just very nervous and needed support and mentorship. And I had a great mentor with Sam Passy in Uinta, but I met a lot of other people too outside of that helped me be better. I also think that we see each other at ULA more frequently than we would on a national level, right? I mean, you can get involved in ALA, and I think there's value to that organization, but you are the people that I see much more frequently. We're facing similar issues, and we have to adhere to the same state laws that are coming right down to us. So that creates a really important shared experience within this particular organization that isn't felt, I think, sometimes in others. So I guess in return, I hope my contributions, that I can give some of that back to what I've received over 10 years. I can't say how much others may learn from me, because I tend to like to watch other early adopters go first, and then I follow them up after, which is one of the things I love about ULA in that regard. But I suppose my contribution's been more in stability and organizational health during my presidency, besides just trying to get through COVID, our focus was looking at basic documents of the organization, like the bylaws and policies and procedures, and making sure they were useful, understandable, and following best practices for succession and constituencies. A lot of that didn't exist. And there was a lot of questions like, what happens if this disaster happens to the organization? And so I worked really hard on that. I suppose that was my major contribution then. And those things needed to happen because we are all volunteers in this group. We only have 2 part-time paid positions in the entire organization, and everyone else gives their time for the most part. And you all know, if you have volunteers in your libraries, that successful onboarding is so important to have a good experience. And we want people to have a good experience in ULA. So in that role, I hope that getting those documents to help train people and to have a good experience and to know where to turn made them better. And then hopefully in turn, they take those skills and experiences and network back to their own libraries.
Daniel is super downplaying his contribution here, everyone. Like, he is so good at what he worked on, the bylaws. He's really good at systems and going through those documents and all the really like nitty-gritty detail stuff. He has a real eye for that. And it's made everyone's job that's come after him so much easier. It's so nice to be able to go back to those bylaws documents and just have it like all written out there for you. And so I mean, talking about like an impact, right? Like you had that impact for all leadership of ULA that follows after you. And then, you know, that impact passes on through them being able to do their job more effectively. Yeah. See, Marissa gets it. she benefited from that directly as well. Okay, well, let's keep rolling here with our questions we've got. In what way does ULA advocate for libraries and the importance of library services in the community? Hiroko, would you be willing to take this one first?
Yes. So ULA partners with ULC, Utah Academic Library Consortium, and UELMA, Utah Educational Library Media Association, to host a Library Day on the Hill at the state capitol to advocate for libraries and intellectual freedom. And along with Utah Cultural Alliance, we hosted cultural industry advocacy / Library Day on the Hill this year, along with other museums and cultural organizations. And we talked to state representatives and their staff and some lobbyists and about what libraries are all about. There seem to be misconceptions out there. So what we can do is to let people know what we do and then how that benefits our community and the state as a whole. And then ULA also partners with the Utah Read to host this event called Read In event at the state capitol. And then so this year, so reading starts with the community members gathering, starts reading in the rotunda. And so it was on January 26th. And we had great speakers and it was very well attended. And then ULA had a table and then we got to talk to many book lovers and then also helped circulating the petition to veto HB 29, which was the sensitive material review amendments. So I think that's a huge contribution to the community.
Great, thanks, Hiroko. I know I said no secret bonus questions, but I've noticed that you really kind of took to advocacy right away. What do you think it was that drew you to start helping out with that within ULA?
Oh, so I'm thoroughly impressed by our advocacy committee, and in this activity, they post information of what's happening during the legislative sessions and yeah, listening to their passionate plea and at the board meetings, like it really got me excited and I wanted to be involved. And then, yeah, I think intellectual freedom is huge. And in my profession of providing access services, we really care about connecting people with information, and that connects to my job, and then protecting people's privacy. And no one should be judged by what they want to read. And that's, I strongly believe that align with my profession.
Great. Thanks, Hiroko. It's really important work, so I'm glad that we've got people interested in helping with it. Daniel, you want to talk a little bit about your experience with ULA advocacy?
Yeah, and I think that you, Patrick, could also talk about this because the president gets a little more involved in this regard too, especially in the last couple months that you just had. Hiroko was right. A lot of credit needs to be given to Rebecca Cummings for revitalizing the advocacy committee in 2019. She was president at the time, and it was called the Legislative Committee, and she renamed it to advocacy, which I think is more appropriate. And she has not rested since she became presidency. As soon as she was done with that, she became co-chair of that committee, has been super active, and then she recruited Peter Bromberg to be the other co-chair. But the thing about that committee is that I really like the strategy that they employ. So much of the political arena is publicized as very negative and attacking. And sometimes, even as president, I saw a little bit of that when we tried to testify in committee meeting, and some people have treated me very good, legislators wise. Some people said, I think you're gaslighting us. And it was that kind of an attack. It's like, oh gosh, I swear that's not what I'm trying to do. But, they were, I don't know, sometimes there's a show, I guess is what I'm saying. But the strategy that ULA usually employs is Peter has taught us really well to say it's about building relationships. And that happens the other 10 months of the year. There is a lot of work that Rebecca and Peter and others are doing the entire year in trying to show these legislators that we want mutual purpose. We do want to try to do what you're trying to do, and we can try to find that goal together. And that's such valuable groundwork to lay, because once the legislative session hits, they had 500 plus bills this year that they had to just burn through. And sometimes they don't see all the fine print that's getting pushed in some of these bills, for better or worse. And that is not the time to build relationships, because they're trying to get the work done. So when these bills are going through committee the other 10 months of the year until they hit legislative for everyone to see, that's the time when, hopefully, if we've built good relationships with these legislators, that Rebecca and Peter are even called upon at times to say, hey, this bill is what we're thinking about, and can you provide some context and expertise? And that's the great time to do it before it even hits intense pressure in the legislature. So I think they've been very good at that. They've been very good at building collaborations with other organizations, so we have a collective voice. There have been bills that have come out that haven't been too great for libraries, but I can promise you, having seen it some on the backside, that they have tempered so many of the bills that have passed that could have been so much worse because of the work they did to help these people see we want to work on that together. So I think they do a really great job.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Rebecca and Peter have been awesome for ULA advocacy. The relationship building part that you brought up, that's so important. That's something that I think they do a good job with, but it's something that we're continuing to try and work on and expand. One of the pushes that we've had with ULA is we really want to kind of broaden our reach. We've got librarians in communities all over the state, and we'd love to be able to do a better job of leveraging that to build those relationships with legislators. So especially people that don't live along the Wasatch Front, like we don't necessarily have connections with those legislators. And so that can be like a really nice point of entry for us. And so when we've got some legislation coming up that we're worried might adversely affect libraries, it's really nice to know, like, oh, we know somebody in this part of the state that's this person's constituent, and being able to get kind of like a letter introducing us, making that connection, and also having that person be able to express how that's going to affect the library in their community and how that's going to negatively impact that, and to consider working with librarians on passing legislation that's going to a lot of times this is focused on protecting children. Like at libraries, we want to keep kids safe too. We just want to make sure that it's done in a way that isn't gonna negatively impact people's freedom to explore ideas that are important to them. So Yeah, part of this webinar is definitely an unabashed pitch for some of you guys to get involved. So, you know, if you live outside the Wasatch Front, that would be great to know that, so that we could get connected with some of these legislators. Okay, well, let's go on to our next question here. How does ULA support networking and collaboration among library professionals in Utah? Wants to start us off on that one? Maggie, I choose you.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to speak up. I'll put in a couple plugs first. One is for mentoring and networking roundtable. The whole one of the main purposes of the roundtable is to help librarians throughout the state make connections and network. And we like to do it in like a little bit more informal ways. There's going to be a dinner on Wednesday night of the conference, so you should come, and it's super informal and we just get to talk and get to know each other. And I think that that's a really valuable time. Also I don't know what the acronym is, LAMART. It's like Library Administrators and Managers something roundtable. Right now they're doing a mentorship program that's starting when the conference starts. So if you want to mentor, if you want to be mentored, that's another great opportunity to get to know people at the state that's a little bit more structured, where you have like a specific mentor or mentee that you can work with for the next year and just get to know them and give advice, get advice. So those are two ways. But I think also there's so many opportunities at the conference just to meet new people. It can be kind of overwhelming if you are like coming into the conference and there's lots of sessions and lots of people. But like the networking social on Thursday night, or just in between sessions to like turn around and talk to someone in the session that you're in and get to know them. That's one of my favorite things about ULA is that you get to know people, and then the next conference, you know more people and you can reconnect with them. And the last thing that I was thinking of is just as far as like collaborating and really getting to know people is volunteering, or I guess volunteering to have your name on the ballot for committees, and then being involved on roundtables or committees, because then you really get to know people because you get to work with them throughout the whole year. And that's just awesome to make those connections and to get to work with people and accomplish even like a little small task. It's really cool.
Thanks, Maggie. Thanks for plugging all of those great roundtables and things going on. I 100% agree with Maggie. I think the best part about ULA is the connections that you make, the people that you meet. It's so nice to, you know, be able to talk to people that maybe have similar struggles than you do, but with a little bit of space, and, you know, they're able to provide a different perspective on it than what you might get with, you know, your direct colleagues at the library that you work at. There's so many great perspectives. I always feel so grateful that there's so many people that I'm sure I would have never met, never worked with if it wasn't for ULA, you know, people all across the state. You know, I don't spend a lot of time out in Duchesne, so I don't know that I would have ever got an opportunity to meet Daniel otherwise. I've met a lot of great people that work down at the BYU library that also I wouldn't have met working here in Salt Lake. So it's a really great opportunity. And then Emily, I think you had some thoughts on this one as well, right?
Yeah, I'll just echo that networking is such a huge part of being involved in ULA. And you can definitely get started by going to the conference and meeting people that way. Even if so I'm a naturally shy person. I remember I don't think I talked to people really besides who I already knew the first couple of times I went. But just attending the sessions, like that's somebody that you now know is somebody that you can go to with questions on that topic. Like that's part of why they're presenting and sharing that information. And I'm sure they would love it if somebody reached out with additional questions. But the more you participate, the more people you'll know, and you'll know more people next time. And if you do get involved with the other groups throughout the year, that will introduce you to just more folks that you can network with. But so there are there are other roundtables and groups in ULA that also provide events throughout the year. One of them that I've been involved with is the Library Instruction Roundtable, so LIRT. That was the group that I was most involved with when I was working in academic libraries. And they met, I'm not sure what they're doing now since I'm in a different position, but for a while they were meeting about once a month throughout the school year virtually. So we could just get together and to kind of talk about things that were going on in our libraries and share ideas. Oh, Karen chimed in, so they meet once a month on Fridays. That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that's still going on. They were a lifeline for me. Like, that was such a good group, especially as we were navigating the pandemic, kind of switching from in-person instruction to online. It was great to have that group to meet with on a regular basis to talk about how we were still doing our instruction programs, ask questions, maybe complain a little bit about the problems that we're having. But that's just another group that's a good example of a roundtable that's available through ULA where you can be involved throughout the year. And it wasn't a heavy time commitment. Usually there'd be a loose topic that they'd focus on, but not a huge time commitment with that one, and a great way to meet people across the state that you could reach out to as you had questions. Some other personal experiences that I've had. I met Patrick through ULA. Like, that's how Patrick and I know each other, is our involvement with ULA. And then when I moved into this job, it was very different from what I was doing before. So one of the first things I did was reach out to Patrick and kind of talk about how things work at the city, kind of run some ideas by him. And then he's just been available. The first time I was planning our big staff development day, kind of reach out to him and see what they've done with that in the past. It's just great to have those people that you can reach out to. And I've made those connections through ULA.
I think that's really good advice, Emily, kind of talking about getting to know people by focusing on, one of the roundtables that might align with your interests or what your job is, like learning the LIRT, the Learning Instruction Roundtable. I recommend that to a lot of people. It's, kind of try and find your tribe. First, start with the things that are similar, and you're gonna make some good connections then. And especially if you're a little bit more shy, that's a lot more manageable to meet that group of people. And then you've got kind of like your little group of people that you recognize when you go to the conference, and it expands from there. And it's true, LIRT is not just for academic librarians. That was one of the first things I ever did with ULA. Actually, there was LIRT put on something that was at the Westminster Library. I remember, just about like instruction design or something, and that was when I was doing training at the city library. So that was super helpful for me.
Maybe I should keep joining you guys.
And then Hiroko, I saw your hand went up. Did you have something that you wanted to add as well?
I just wanted to say, if you're going to the conference, volunteering for the conference, I really recommend. That's how I met Daniel and Maggie on a virtual conference here. I just volunteered to do the moderator for sessions, and I believe that's how I met them for the first time, and then reunited at the other ULA meetings.
For sure, volunteering is a great way to get started. My very first thing with ULA actually was I came in as the vice program chair, and I guess I was kind of the opposite of Emily in some ways, because I was like putting together this like big conference. Like, that's kind of what I already do for my job. I can apply exactly what I'm doing for my job, and I looked at it as like help ULA out doing that, but it ended up being such a valuable experience for me to see kind of a different way that something like that is put together, like a different, slightly different situation. So there's a lot that I learned. There's a lot that I was able to contribute as well. And it's when you can kind of volunteer and you get that defined task, that's like a nice way to get brought into ULA. And then, if you enjoy it, there's always opportunities to expand from there. Great. Any other thoughts there? Oh yeah, the registration desk. I've never actually done the registration desk. Maggie just dropped that in chat that she did the registration desk, and it's a great way to meet people. I think I'd really enjoy that. Maybe I'll do that this year. Maybe you'll see me at the registration desk, those of you at the conference. Okay, let's go on to our next question here. Could you share some highlights of your experience serving within ULA? Daniel, you want to kick us off on that one?
Gosh darn. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry to beat the word network into this, but and network sounds so professional, the friendship, right? But I think more than just location, I love how ULA, I would not know Rebecca or Marissa or Maggie or any of these academic librarians without ULA. I'd only know public librarians. And what a loss. I don't know how else to say it. It would be such a loss that I wouldn't know that I had missed out on. So that's wonderful. And I like how ULA bridges us across the administration hierarchy of all of our libraries. I have worked with all kinds of levels of librarians and back and forth. I've talked with deans from libraries, and I've talked with part-time librarians. I love that we all get to work together and break out of our work hierarchy wherever we're at. So I think that's the other wonderful thing about this network. Being a member at large, a board member at large, was a really great experience. It wasn't overly burdensome. I'm really pleased to see in the last couple of years that many people have stepped forward interested in that opportunity. I always wish everyone could get elected. Unfortunately, you can't, but I hope you don't give up on doing it. Being president was not a career aspiration of mine. I voted for my competitor, and I think we were only separated by 3 votes in that particular election. It was super tight. But I remember feeling physiological shock when I saw that result come through. I just very drained, and you know, but it was a great experience working with Rebecca and Vern Waters, Rita Christensen, and Marissa Bischoff. They were the 5 that I was involved with in my 3 years, and you become very close. Shared experiences that are hard like that really bring you close to other people, and I'll love them for the rest of my life. And it was a really hard experience that I'm glad I had and don't want to do again. And I think that's a common feeling among the presidents, like it's really worth it. One time's good. And then I guess the other things I really like that are highlights, and Maggie mentioned them. I love the dinners that we're going to have here. I love speaking and just letting our hair down one-on-one, doing the socials at the conference. That's my favorite stuff, sometimes more than the presentations. I love going and touring other people's libraries when that's set up and seeing things in context. I love that you can get involved for a low cost. I know that $60 or $30 can be a little bit burdensome, but compared to our national organization and then having to pay for every single roundtable you want to be part of, it gets very costly. ULA, it's one fee, being everything you want, and I love that. And I guess the last thing I really love is I love award nominations. I love seeing all this amazing stuff going on, and writing out nominations is so much fun. And if they get picked, that's great. If not, I submit it again the next year and just add to it and try again. And I love seeing people get recognized at conference for the awesome stuff that they're doing. And that's some of my joy in ULA.
No, that's a great recap, Daniel. I love how you talked about kind of that shared experience that gets built up from working on, you know, these like really intensive kind of projects. Like after, you know, 2 years with Marissa, I'd do anything for Marissa. Marissa is the best person in the universe as far as I'm concerned. Same thing when you're on one of the conference planning. Those years I went through as program chair, like I'll always think of that fondly, working with those people, even though it's hard sometimes, right? Like it's not just like a walk in the park, but that's what makes it meaningful, like overcoming those challenges together. Oh, thanks, Marissa. Let's see. And then Maggie, I think you had some thoughts to share here as well.
Okay, I had a lot of the same thoughts. I think we've already talked a lot about like the people and the connections. One other thing that this is still related to people, but that has been really valuable in my experience with ULA so far is like seeing the great examples of leadership and like collaboration in like all different venues, but especially like behind the scenes working on the conference planning committee or attending board meetings and seeing like how everyone just is like willing to share and contribute their voices and work together is like a really cool experience. And I have learned a lot about like leadership, and especially because everyone, as has already been said, is volunteering their time So no one has to be doing this, and yet people put in so much. So that has been a really valuable experience for me.
I couldn't agree more. I've learned so much about leadership from observing the other people in ULA and the way they run things, the way they navigate difficult situations, the way they build consensus. It's been really inspiring for me. I kept thinking that like, oh man, we're going really quick. And then I realized my laptop, the clock is 10 minutes behind, and like, no, we're like exactly on time basically. So I'm gonna go ahead and we'll do our last big question here, and then we'll have time for questions from everyone that attended today. What advice would you give someone who is considering getting involved with ULA? Emily, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I can get started on that. I love that tip of volunteering at the conference. So if you are planning to go to the conference, that's usually part of the registration form, is if you're able to volunteer. It is a lot of fun helping at the registration desk. And if you're brand new, there's no expectation that you'll know people's last names. So that's a good reason to volunteer as a starting point. It can be a little more stressful later on when you can't remember someone's last name and can't find their badge, but that's just me. But yeah, volunteering at the conference, I think, is a great way to get involved, especially if you're already planning on going. And then there are smaller events like this that happen throughout the year. There's the fall workshop that can be really beneficial to go to, especially if it's a little closer to where you are. It rotates location from year to year. So the fall workshop is another opportunity to get involved. And then the YSRT workshop in the spring, that's for our youth services librarians. And then webinars like this are a great way to kind of learn about ULA and find different ways to get involved. But if you are joining ULA as a new member, or if it's been a minute since you've looked at your profile, I would recommend getting into your ULA member profile online and looking at which roundtables and committees you've marked that you're interested in, because that can impact what emails you receive. So if you mark that you're interested in the library instruction roundtable, that will get you on their email list when they go through Wild Apricot, and then you can find out about their events. So just take a look at that and kind of adjust those settings as needed based on your interests, the job that you're in right now, and that will just really help you find out about different events that are going on throughout the year. And I would say, again, I think it's great to get involved with those smaller groups. That can be a little bit less of a time commitment and a way to kind of find out what ULA is about before you might want to look at some of the other positions that are available as well. So, and Daniel, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, go for it, Daniel.
I just want to add that yes, click what you like, and also click the question that says, I'm willing to volunteer. Because if you said no, we may not ask you, but if you really want to get involved, click it to yes. So we also know you'd like to get involved.
Those are both great tips. I think not a lot of people think to go into their like profile on the ULA website. I mean, I know that's not like the first thing I think about each morning when I wake up, but it really is a good place. You know, you can tailor that to get emails about your interests. I know we get a lot of emails from people too of like, hey, why am I getting this email from this group? And it's because at some point you did go into Wild Apricot and you check that little thing that you were interested in it. So it's a good idea to go in there and update what your interests are there. Also, that volunteer like tick box, like that's for me like the best thing in the world when people get on that list. Like we've had a few positions that have opened up this year, and I've just been able to send out an email to that group of like, hey, is anybody interested in that? And it's been excellent because every time there's been like multiple people interested in it. So yeah, it's a great way to get involved.
I did think of one other thing, because I did recommend maybe starting small with some of the like roundtables and committees, but I kind of started big, where my first role was to be the conference chair, but I was vice chair the year before that. So a lot of these positions have a year of learning leading into it. So I was the vice chair for a conference committee, and I got to learn a lot of the ropes that year before I was the conference chair. So there's that built in as well when you start volunteering.
Yeah, I think it's really well set up in general, how it works with getting involved with ULA. It would be impossible to just be thrown in and just all of a sudden be the president, but you get to have a year as president-elect where you've got two other people that have, you know, just been doing that, and you can kind of learn from them and see how it goes. And it kind of nicely steps you in to taking responsibility that way. Okay, and then Hiroko, I think you had some thoughts on this as well.
Yes, I want to say it's very worthwhile to serve in a ULA position because basically your library world and perspectives would expand. even want to say explode. That was my experience, has been my experience, and you will learn more about collaborative work beyond your library. And like it's been mentioned across different libraries that unless you do interlibrary law, you might not have that kind of experience. And then network with people who have similar roles and similar interests, like Patrick mentioned earlier, and then which can lead to improving your libraries as services and workflows, because you have different resources and perspectives that are presented in front of you. And then in general, it's great to gain library friends. Yeah, I want to use the word friends too. And then I was reunited with my cohort classmates from my library program. Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm recovering from cold. And also I was reunited with Patrick from the time we were both student library staff at the U of U library, which was like years and years ago.
Yeah, it's cool how you can reconnect through ULA. You know, people that you met years ago and didn't think you'd ever see again, and there they are. Yeah. Great, thanks, Hiroko. Well, that's all the questions that I had prepared for our panelists, but are there questions that any of you would like to ask, either for the panelists or more questions about ULA or how to get involved? I also see there's a lot of current ULA officers, or current and former officers, in the chat here. So if there's anything any of you would like to share, we'll hear from you too. I won't say no to more wisdom. It's okay, I'm just gonna give everybody kind of a beat here to think if they've got any questions. And if not, we can go about the rest of our day. Enjoy that nice spring weather. Let's see, I see Diana says ULA is a wonderful organization. I have made such fantastic connections in ULA. Oh, I agree, Diana. Great. Oh, Hiroko, have you got something else?
Yeah, I was forgot I got reunited with Emily as well.
Yeah, I just said in the chat, once you've worked at a couple of places, it's so fun coming back and getting to see people.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great note to end on. ULA, a place to reconnect. Okay, well, thank you everyone so much for attending the webinar today. I hope this was helpful to all of you. I hope it maybe inspired you to think about ways that you might get involved with ULA in the future. And I hope I see you all at the conference, which is 3 weeks from today. Conference will be going on, Salt Palace. Yeah, it's gonna be great. All right, thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.